As our nation commemorates 250 years of independence, there's no better time to hit the road on a Revolutionary road trip. South Carolina's Upcountry and the old 96th District, the site of many battles and skirmishes during the American Revolution, hold iconic locations like Kings Mountain National Military Park and cow pens, mixed with hidden gems like Musgrove Mill State Historic Site and Walnut Grove Plantation, as well as great places for food and drinks along the way and charming places to stay, like an old railroad caboose.
Choo-choo!
You got that right. In this podcast, we're presenting a Revolutionary road trip in South Carolina's Upcountry and the old 96th District, complete with the stories that will make you want to travel to this part of my home state, South Carolina, to experience the history firsthand.
If you held 96, you held the backcountry of South Carolina.
They're neighbors.
Many of the men probably even knew each other fighting across the hill.
It is hallowed ground for certain, and that is one of the reasons that the park exists.
We'll also mix in the modern culture and cuisine that make a road trip here so worthwhile. I'm Darley Newman, the host and producer of the long-running Travels with Darley series on PBS and streaming, and the author of the Revolutionary Road Trip sub-series of TV episodes, and the Revolutionary Road Trip book, as well as this podcast. And for the past 2 decades, I've been traveling near and far to find the very best hidden gems with locals as my guides. That's why I'm so excited to guide you through the Upcountry of South Carolina and the old 96th District. I was able to go there myself and experience these places, and I can tell you they are compelling. From spicy and sweet pecans to European flavors and baseball views, James Beard Award-winning comfort food, battle sites, and historic inns. Let's hit the road on a Revolutionary road trip in South Carolina. This Revolutionary road trip itinerary traverses the northwestern part of South Carolina, driving from Kings Mountain to 96. If you were to drive from north to south through all of the stops I'll be sharing with you, and you didn't stop at all at each location, the drive would take you about 3 to 4 hours, covering about 110 to 120 miles. But since we're definitely stopping en route, I'd allot 2 days if you're moving fast, and 3 to 5 days to really soak in all there is to offer. On my trip to this area, I based myself in Spartanburg, South Carolina, at the lovely Clevedale Historic Inn and Gardens. You can slumber in this lovingly restored inn in beautiful rooms inside, complete with tasty homemade breakfasts, or sleep outside in a vintage caboose.
Choo-choo!
Choo-choo! More on that later. We're starting our adventures in the Upcountry region of South Carolina, an area that borders Georgia and North Carolina in the foothills of the Blue Ridge Mountains. The Upcountry is equidistant to Atlanta and Charlotte, and just about 3 to 4 hours away from popular South Carolina destinations like my hometown of Myrtle Beach, and beloved Charleston and Hilton Head. We're starting at Kings Mountain National Military Park, less than 40 miles from the Charlotte International Airport in North Carolina, less than 60 miles from the Greenville-Spartanburg Airport in South Carolina, and less than 2 hours from Columbia, South Carolina. This national military park is located just south of the North and South Carolina border. Park Ranger Robert Holmes took me out along historic trails at this site of the October 7, 1780 Battle of Kings Mountain, a pivotal American victory.
I don't think that there's a single day that goes by when we're not visited by somebody who is descended from one of the men who participated in this battle.
If you're traveling here, a must is to walk the 1.5-mile paved battlefield trail. There are also backcountry trails here that allow you to explore the terrain that made such a difference in this pivotal battle.
So Major William Chronicle was one of the local militia commanders. When the battle is being fought, he is going to lead his men in this area where we're walking right now. And then he will be cut down by Loyalist gunfire 35 years after the Battle of Kings Mountain. One of Major Chronicle's friends, Dr. William McLean, he will erect the original Chronicle Marker, the second oldest monument on any battlefield in the continental United States. The rock that he chose to build it from was very soft, so there's been a lot of erosion. In 1914, the Daughters of the American Revolution stepped in and they donated the new Chronicle Marker to preserve the inscription.
So right now we're looking at the second oldest monument on a battlefield here in the United States.
That's correct.
The Chronicle Marker is just one of around a half dozen monuments and memorials in the park. As Park Ranger Holmes and I continued along the battlefield trail, he further contextualized the importance of the Battle of Kings Mountain.
1780 is not a great year. 3 continental armies were destroyed, and the British had basically overrun all of South Carolina. When the Battle of Kings Mountain is fought, a wing of Lord Cornwallis's army is completely annihilated. This large, decisive victory changes people's perceptions. Now they're thinking, hey, it's time to take up our guns. So it convinces the Patriots, those who favored independence, to persevere, to fight on, to continue.
A lot of people who visit this park, they actually have a tie to the battle.
I don't think that there's a single day that goes by when we're not visited by somebody who is descended from one of the men who participated in this battle. This park isn't just a place to come and visit and learn about history. To them, it's almost sacred ground.
From Kings Mountain, you could continue on to Cowpens National Battlefield in the same day, or if you're ready, head to Spartanburg for some food, drink, and shopping. But for this itinerary, we're driving about 35 minutes from Kings Mountain to Cowpens National Battlefield, where on July 17, 1781, General Daniel Morgan helped win a key battle against British Lieutenant Colonel Bannister Tarleton. This national park site has a visitor center, like Kings Mountain, where you can learn about the battle through various exhibitions. On my visit, I was able to interview Park Ranger Paul Cothran and walk along the park's battlefield trails. Why is this area called the Cowpens?
The Cowpens, for lack of a better way to put it, this is pasture land in the middle of a deep, deep forest. The Cowpens was flanked by creeks on both sides. Cattle drivers could stop here, turn the cattle loose without having to build fences because of the natural barriers here. It is a natural cowpens and became known locally as the Cowpens. The Battle of Cowpens is going to come at a really important time for the American Revolution here in the southern colonies, where you have a British army here under Bannister Tarleton. He's got about 1,100 troops, and he's been on the hunt, and he's been tracking down this combined Continental Militia Army under Daniel Morgan. Daniel Morgan and his army are able to reverse this tide of success for the British Army. And this victory here is going to send shockwaves, a lightning bolt, to the American colonies for both soldiers and civilians.
How does Cowpens relate to these other battle sites that we've been able to visit?
All of these actions that you're talking about, battles, Kings Mountain, 96, they all link together in this chain of events to liberate South Carolina.
Another 30 minutes down the road and you'll want to make a stop at Walnut Grove Plantation, where you can learn about a woman who helped the Patriot cause, Kate Moore Berry.
She rallied hundreds of men, telling the Patriots and her neighbors that General Morgan needed help. And so hundreds of men rallied and marched to Cowpens from here.
Walnut Grove Plantation has been welcoming travelers since the 1960s to learn about life on this former plantation, including life for the enslaved peoples in South Carolina's backcountry. 10 minutes from Walnut Grove Plantation and you're in Spartanburg, a city with European vibes that's walkable. Right in the center of Spartanburg, there's a statue that pays tribute to Daniel Morgan. Local author and icon Joe Mullinex showed me around town.
Daniel Morgan led the first defeat of British regulars in the war. Spartanburg is named after his regiment, the Spartan Regiment. The statue was dedicated 100 years after the battle. Spartanburg at that time was a town of 3,000 people. Over 20,000 people came to town for the dedication.
We passed signs for Spartanburg's music trail, en route to a special bookstore.
So welcome,
Look at this greeting.
I know, welcome to Hub City Bookshop, the official mascot.
Zora, a black and white tuxedo cat, greets us. Don't you love it when there's a cat mascot?
This is one of the few nonprofit bookstores in the country. And there's a publishing house associated with it, Hub City Press. They put out a ton of books on Revolutionary War history because that's such a key component to Spartanburg's history. And there's also a book about all the famous musicians from Spartanburg.
Spartanburg is known for this music history, and a lot of people have come out of here that have gone on to do great things.
We even have a walking tour downtown called the Spartanburg Music Trail that highlights some of our famous musicians that came out of here. You may have heard of the Marshall Tucker Band. That's just one of about 24 that we have highlighted on our music trail.
While in Spartanburg, there are lots of dining options. You could hit Rick Irwin's Level 10 rooftop on the 10th floor of the AC Hotel in downtown Spartanburg. An option as well for accommodations, or dine on locally sourced fare at the Kennedy.
Really good. Delicious.
Thank you.
You can also head over to James Beard Award-winning Wade's Restaurant, which has been welcoming locals for Meat and Three since 1947. It's delicious. I definitely recommend a Thanksgiving meal here because you can get that turkey with homemade cornbread dressing year-round, as well as Wade's famous yeast rolls. With those food options alone, you're good for a few nights in Spartanburg for dining. And there are more places to dine and stay, like Clevedale Historic Inn and Gardens, which I mentioned earlier for its vintage caboose. Ponthiola Mac Abernathy shares the story of this special place to stay.
So the property dates back to 1798. It was a 440-acre plantation. This is the second house on the property, and it was built in 1913.
You likely won't need extra food or coffee after a morning breakfast at the Clevedale Inn, but if you do, head over to Little River Roasting at Fretwell, where there's a roastery right on site. You can also stretch your legs with the locals here. This roastery, cafe, and coffee shop is located just off the Mary Blackwell Rail Trail. Drive 45 minutes to an hour from Spartanburg, and you'll reach the Battle of Musgrove Mill State Historic Site. There's a visitor center with displays and exhibitions on the history of the battle, and 2.5 miles of interpretive trails with signage to share the story here. But I was lucky enough to record this interview with Interpretive Ranger Mark Stanford, who led me out on the battlefield trail. If you're listening to this podcast as you drive this road trip route, I do recommend re-listening to Ranger Mark's interview as you walk the trails here. He really brings the story to life. So here goes.
So the Battle of Musgrove Mill was fought here on August 19th, 1780. About 200 Patriot militiamen had a surprising victory against a force of about 300 Loyalist militiamen and about 200 provincial troops fighting for the British. The morale of the Patriots had pretty much plummeted to nothing in the South. Many thought the war was over, and for the British High Command, they thought the war was over also. Cornwallis believed he had won the war. Unlike many other battles, everyone that fought here is American. It's Patriot versus Loyalist Americans. And all the Loyalist militiamen and the Patriot militiamen from South Carolina are all local men, neighbors of Edward Musgrove or living around 96.
They're neighbors.
Yeah, many of the men probably even knew each other fighting across the hill. I've never come across complete families being divided, but it's very clear that communities are divided here at this battle.
We're standing where these local men brutally fought.
What about the topography?
So it's going to be the landscape itself that kind of shapes the battle here. They don't have time to build trenches or build walls or dig anything, so they're going to use the landscape and the trees as their defensive line. In fact, Colonel James Williams of the South Carolina Militia, in his account of the battle, is going to say he ordered his men to take to the trees. That essentially means you just find your biggest tree, get behind that tree to hide from the enemy. So those trees are going to be critical. It's going to save the Patriot lives here. The shooting bit here in the field is only going to last about 15 minutes, which is fairly typical of Revolutionary War battles. There are very few that last long periods of time. But even for the Revolutionary War, this 15 minutes is going to be very intense and very critical. The victory here will boost the morale of our Patriot cause, setting the stage for the next big battle in October at Kings Mountain.
Just outside of Musgrove Mill, if you're hungry, make a stop at Wilson's Curb Market, a hidden gem located in Clinton, South Carolina, that's been offering diner charm for decades, and tasty double bacon cheeseburgers for a long time too. Family owned since 1958, their bird dogs and pimento bacon cheeseburgers attract locals and road trippers alike. You could head back to Spartanburg for the night and a nice meal now, or continue on if you're short on time. For this itinerary, let's continue on to 96 Pecan Company and a key battlefield location, 96 National Historic Site, also known as Old 96.
This is the first land battle in the South, 1775, so right at the beginning of the American Revolution. It's a small battle, but it's still very important. here to this
Park
side.
Ranger Adrian Stewart guided me to the original Earth and Star Fort, built starting in December of 1780 by Loyalist soldiers and enslaved peoples from area farms and plantations.
So we've made it to this Star Fort.
Yes.
How remarkable that this still is here and relatively intact from the time period.
Built from the red clay that's around here, 8-pointed star-shaped fort. Inside the fort are about 200 Loyalist troops under the command of John Harris Kruger. The Patriots are attempting to take the fort. They're under the command of Nathaniel Greene. We do have some of the trenches the Patriots dug to take the fort. The log structure is the rifle tower that was built by the Patriots. The idea was to elevate your sharpshooters or your riflemen so that they could shoot down into the fort. This is a reconstruction. It's only 10 feet high. The original was 30 feet high.
So this was a 28-day siege. What was the culmination?
They did try to take it on June 18th, 1781 with a full-on attack known as the Forlorn Hope. Unfortunately for Nathaniel Greene and the Patriots, they were not successful, but in the long run, they do succeed at getting the Loyalists to leave.
So would 96 be considered, in a sense, a crossroads of the South and the Southern campaign?
Yes, definitely. 96 really plays a role in getting supplies to and from armies. The Loyalist and the Patriot top command realized that if you held 96, you held the backcountry of South Carolina.
Why the name 96?
Yeah, that's always the question. The most accepted theory is that the traders that are traveling from Charleston to Kiowee believe it to be about 96 miles from the town of Kiowee, which is the closest Cherokee town.
A tasty stop awaits just down the road in the town of 96 with John Murray. 96 Pecan Company is chock full of pecans. Sweet heat pecans, glazed pecans, key lime, and more. There's a lot of antique kitsch throughout the store and lots of photo opportunities. And of course, the opportunity to taste pecans.
John, I realize you call it 96 Pecan Company because you got over 96 kinds of pecans here.
Well, not quite, but close to it.
Murray, who played football at Clemson University, wanted to do something meaningful for himself and his community in his retirement.
I was in law enforcement for 30 years, and so I knew when I retired from that work, I wanted to get into some type of farming. And when we bought the old house next door, which was built in 1848, the pecan grove out there was with it, and it was planted in the 1880s. So it just made sense to get into the pecan farming business, but I did not realize how complicated and expensive it is. And it's probably the most expensive farming you can do because it takes so much equipment and all that to do it.
I'm gonna try the sweet heat.
Yes, please do.
Ooh, those are hot.
Try the praline, it's really good.
Okay, that's my favorite so far. It's that sugary, salty goodness. I'm definitely leaving here with a sugar rush.
Well, I would hope so.
Ending this revolutionary road trip on a high note, literally. There are other places to add to your itinerary around Old 96, like quaint Lawrence with its artists co-op, and Greenwood. But if you're heading home after this, you could drive to Columbia in about an hour and a half. Head on to visit Greenville in about an hour and 15 minutes. Drive back to Spartanburg in about the same amount of time. And remember, you could start in 96 and head north on this adventure, ending in Kings Mountain. Whatever your route and pace, this South Carolina Revolutionary Road Trip is one to remember. You can find out more resources and inspiration by watching my Travels with Darley Revolutionary Road Trip Upcountry South Carolina episode free on YouTube and on your local PBS TV station. You can check out more resources on darley-newman.com and more American Revolution travels in my Revolutionary Road Trip book. You can also head to upcountrysc.com and visit old96sc.com for more resources, itineraries, and ways to plan your trip. Remember, getting out is part of the adventure, and on a Revolutionary Road Trip, you're sure to learn something new. I'm Darley Newman, and I appreciate you traveling with me.